All right, so let's get going if we can. So thank you very much for coming. I have to, I really appreciate your being here. And if you have any questions, just raise your hand and we can try to do that. So last year I did a presentation focused on kind of learning theory, and I mentioned there that probably in this year we would talk about more on an instructional theory, okay, how to teach. But I always like to approach things in a practical way, and so that is the objective. Hopefully we'll be successful, we'll see. All right, so first of all I want to acknowledge this is Principles of Instructional Design by Gagne, Briggs, and Wager. This is one of the classics in instructional design theory and application, and it has been one of the most used textbooks by me, okay, throughout my career. Very, very useful textbook, really. So let's what are the three most important questions every teacher should answer about their students every day? What are the three most important questions that every teacher should answer about their students every day? This is something that I learned from Elder Joseph Muren. Okay, he was one of the 70s, and he said, the questions are, what does the Lord want my students to know? What does the Lord want my students to do? And what does the Lord want my students to become? So whenever we engage in any sort of teaching interaction, be it at home, at school, at church, anywhere, we always have to have in mind that. And we should focus a lot more on seeking the answer to these three questions. All right. My take on this is that more than anything, preparing to teach is trying to find the answer to these questions. Okay. So if you want to prepare a class, any type of class, you should dedicate most of your time in seeking the answer to these questions. Okay. And that doesn't necessarily need to be reading the manual or reading the lesson or preparing, really the answer to these questions is the key to what we need to do. And this applies really in everything. Notice that to feel is not included here. Why? Why is not included? Any ideas? Hmm? To fail? No, to feel, okay. Yeah, there are some handouts around there. Yes, what do you think?
I was just going to say, if you're asking the Lord what He wants your students to know, do, and become, the feel is going to be taken care of by Him.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like they'll feel the Spirit.
Yes. Uh-huh. Ultimately, really, okay, the know, okay, do, and become, it all comes really from the Spirit. All right. So whenever we say that people feel the Spirit, is really one way of really saying that is he's the teacher, really. Okay, but we normally I believe that we focus a little bit too much on feeling happy, feeling enthusiastic, feeling excited, and so on. And I don't think that is really where the focus should be. Let me share this Mosiah 4:30. But this much I can tell you. This is King Benjamin's talk at the end of King Benjamin's talk. That if you do not watch yourselves and your thoughts and your words and your deeds and observe the commandments of God and continue in the faith that ye have heard concerning the coming of the Lord, even unto the end of your lives ye must perish. And now, O man, remember and perish not. There's nothing about feelings there. Okay. So it's watching about what we do, how, all of those things, keeping the commandments, but it's not about feelings.
I'm just curious because I would think when someone has a feeling like they felt a change in them, it's kind of inspiring, would lead them to, especially in our society.
Uh-huh.
So is it different in a spiritual context as opposed to secular learning, or?
No, it's really not. We are going to talk about. Hopefully, we are going to talk about that type of feeling in a little bit, okay? So, but those are, I really believe these are the questions. So, for me, when I have to prepare to do a presentation, like at a conference, okay, I really try to seek the answer to these questions. Okay, and then a lot of what I try to do, sometimes successfully, sometimes not very well, is to repent. Okay, because that is the spirit has to be here. Okay. So today we are going to look at this is, from the theoretical point of view, but also applied in practical ways. That is the key. So what are the different types of learning outcomes and how do I recognize them? And so the literature of instructional design categorizes 5 different types of learning outcomes. They are intellectual skills, and that is the learning how to do something of the intellectual sort. All right, there are several types of different intellectual skills, all the way from discrimination, basically distinguishing concepts, distinguishing words, and so on, all the way to problem solving and higher order skills, intellectual skills. The second type is what is called cognitive strategies. Cognitive strategies is learning how to govern your own learning, remembering, and thinking. That is a very, very important skill also because whether we know it or not, we all develop certain cognitive strategies that help us to regulate our own learning. How do we approach an assignment or something that we are asked to do or to learn, all right? And that is actually a different set of skills that also can be taught and learned. A third category of learning outcomes is what the literature calls verbal information, and that is learning to state, declare, or explain some knowledge, but not memorization. Okay, so this is not the type of memorization, but it's basically the type of thing that you would do if someone asks you. Well, let's say it could be something historical. So what happened during World War II? Okay. So someone asks you that question, you would probably are able to put some sort of discourse or a series of sentences and so on where you draw from your memory all the information that you know about World War II. Okay. Or the question could be, what is the meaning of the atonement? Could you answer that without having a written script? Okay. Yeah. So that is part of this type of verbal information skills. very, very important to develop the ability to do this. The fourth one is what is called motor skills, learning how to do something of a physical sort with your body. And I prefer to call this psychomotor skills, because the motor skills, the physical part, also has a psychological component, some intellectual type of component associated with it. The fifth one is called attitudes, and that is learning to choose positive or negative course of personal action. Okay, so in this case is what are the choices that people make, whether they choose to do something or choose to avoid doing something. And it could be an attitude towards another people, another group of people, and towards a thing or an event. Okay, any type of this type of decision can be described as an attitude. These are the 5 different types of categories of learning outcomes. So, of the 5 categories, which one of these is the most important? What type of learning outcome would you say is the most important? Any guesses? We have number 2 here, a vote for number 2, cognitive strategies. Okay, learning how to learn. Okay, any other? Number 5. So we have 3 votes, 4 votes for number 5. Okay, 5. Okay, so I posit that it is actually number 5, is the attitudes. So we are going to focus today on this. I don't know that we'll have enough time to go through all 5, okay? But we'll start with attitude. So we said already is learning to choose a positive or negative course of personal action. An attitude is an internal state, okay? This is what I think is the type of feeling that you were talking about in the Relief Society, okay? It's actually the desire or the internal state of someone now wanting to choose to do something or to change something or to engage in some way, okay? That is the type of feeling. So we call that attitude. All right, excellent. And the attitudes are not easily observable. They can be only inferred by the choices that you see people make. Okay? And many times we ask if you're trying to assess in a technical way an attitude and you don't have the opportunity to follow someone for an extended period of time, you ask them to report the choices that they make. Okay? And so it is inferred from observation or from the learner's behavior. These attitudes are not one choice, it's not one time, but it has to be several choices over time. Those are the things that give evidence to what the attitude is. Okay? These are also individual choices and are not influenced by peer pressure. These are choices that are not influenced by parental or adult pressure, and should be also not influenced by rewards or punishment. Okay, so that is what it means that they are individual choices. How we actually choose, what we choose to do. Okay. Let me go, so we may go a little back and forth on this, but this is what the theoretically, how do we teach attitudes? The things to do are to provide a respected, credible, and identifiable and powerful human model. Okay? So if you want to teach an attitude, the best way to do it is by exposing the learner to a human model that displays that attitude, that makes those choices over and over again. And the model has to be credible, has to be respected, okay? And the model also shows what happens to that person. As that person makes choices, you are able to show what happens, what are the consequences. The learning, yes?
So this is like I've got this set of books that I like to teach my kids called Value Tales, and it takes like a person from the past, like Abraham Lincoln or something, and tells his story.
Yes.
Kind of what this is.
That is exactly. How else, where else do we see this type of model in teaching attitudes? In the scriptures. Give me some examples where the scriptures use this strategy to teach attitude learning.
Nephi.
Go ahead, explain a little bit more. Nephi. Mm-hmm.
I think you see his roller coaster, I think. Like
Yeah.
we have emotional roller coasters. And it helps you learn how to deal with different things. Like Nephi's, what do you call it? I don't know if it's called his psalm or whatever. When he's just so down in the dumps. I'm like, wait, Nephi, the all amazing Nephi could actually do that?
Yeah,
That's awesome because I could do that. And then, just to watch Nephi.
That's right. Yeah.
Different things.
And you know, Nephi is an archetypical example of this. And we all want to relate to Nephi. Okay? We all want to be like him, and we teach that and we show that to our children. All right? How else? What other examples are in order to teach attitude in the scriptures?
Mormon teaching about Captain Moroni when he kind of pauses and he describes his character and
Yeah.
how awesome he is.
Yeah. You know, and it is amazing really how in the same chapters you see the contrast between Amlakaya and Captain Moroni, and how one and you see the actions of Amlakaya, evil after evil, and it seems that everything is going up and up for him. Okay, he becomes king of the Lamanites and everything. So what is the problem? So you are showing here some, if you wish, good consequences, but then what does Mormon do to help us see what is actually happening? He compares Amlakaya to Satan himself, and shows how all that leads to destruction and war and death and everything. The learning comes from this vicarious reinforcement. It is extremely important when we use these models to help whoever it is that we are teaching to see what are the choices that this person is making, what are the consequences, and then what do you learn from that? How does that apply? Okay? So that is the way to model and teach attitudes. How else are attitudes taught? By the way, okay, in the case of Nephi, we have also Laman and Lemuel, that are the model for the other side. All right, and it's important to show both sides really of the choosing and the consequences. Mm-hmm. What else is used a lot to teach attitudinal learning?
So with my 13-year-old son, telling him that he needs to change and become something doesn't work. So I like to take current events that are appropriate for and analyze and see what happened. And, you know,
That's right, yeah.
what are the consequences of these choices, that whether being good consequences or negative. And that's real. That's real.
Very real, yeah.
It's like that really happened here, where he lives, that he can associate with.
Yeah. Yes.
Maybe experiences. So, for instance, if you wanted to teach a child to be grateful for what they have, you could actually go down to the homeless shelter and feed the homeless. That would be an experience that I think that they would be able to then see and draw.
Yeah.
Sort of like the thing that it's an actual physical, real experience.
An actual experience. The interesting thing is that in order to develop an attitude, those cannot be just a point experience. You need to follow up with other experiences, okay? Again, like I was mentioning before, you know, the attitude is not just one-time choice. It's a choice over a period of time.
I think it requires an understanding if they can identify or admire a person, and they see that success and they would like to emulate it, whether
Yeah.
it's a behavior or generally it would be probably something praiseworthy where they would see their physical success. And then to teach them how they got to that point. So there's always a cost involved in an accountability. It's not just superficial or flat.
Yeah.
And it's important to get the attitude, I would think, that they would have to have an understanding of what was required to get to that point of mirroring or imaging that person.
The advertisement industry is completely based on this. Okay. You know, they have Michael Jordan eating Wheaties or whatever it is, you know. So it is a model making a choice. Okay, it's credible, shows the consequences. We want to follow, we go and buy the stuff. Okay. So the whole, you know, advertisement industry is based on that. Movies are very, very influential in using this same type of modeling for everyone, okay? And it can be used for good and for bad, okay? So that is the reason, one of the many reasons why we need to be very discerning in which movies we watch. Not only the ones that we allow our children to watch, but the ones that we watch ourselves too. Because they really do affect our attitudes. They really model the attitudinal choices, and we will follow that. The research shows that using persuasive communications doesn't work, okay, to form an attitude. Making an emotional appeal or an appeal to reason doesn't work very well. Something that is very, very critical is to not accidentally model the wrong attitude. Okay? Or purposefully, even worse, purposefully modeling the wrong attitude just to show empathy. So, an example, okay, this may not have ever happened to you, but you have, okay, one of my kids comes and says, Dad, I need homework with my algebra, I need help with my algebra homework. And I'm go, algebra? You know, I don't know the stuff. What is the message there?
Algebra is too hard to learn.
Algebra is too hard to learn. Okay. You know, so we need to be extremely careful, okay, of not modeling the wrong attitude. And math anxiety is one of those attitudes that is actually very, very strong. It has been lots of research done on that, and is very, very real. When someone has math anxiety, It's really difficult to overcome, all right? How is math anxiety learned? How do you think that math anxiety is learned? Examples. It is from observing other people with math anxiety. Okay. Many years ago, when I was doing graduate school, one of the faculty at BYU in the elementary ed program, we were talking about this issue, and he said, this is a real problem. And one of the problems that we have is that people that have math anxiety choose majors in college that have the least math requirements. Okay? And then he said, do you know which is the major that has the least math required? Elementary ed. Okay, and so we purposefully self-select with the majors to guide the people with math anxiety to become the teachers of the next generation who pass the math anxiety attitude to the kids. No wonder we have a problem here. And so by the time that they get to a math teacher in high school that may have a positive attitude toward math, they already have math anxiety galore. Okay, so really, really difficult. As homeschooling parents, we need to be very careful of how we model our attitudes toward topics that we may be less expert. Okay, so we should be careful on that. Yes.
I just wanted to suggest, but our family does number parties.
Uh-huh.
And so it's fun, and we do like crazy things with math. Like I have a book that helps me know, like fun kinds of equations that like put things around and
Yes.
like magic tricks.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Things like that, and that's just one way that. And we also make our kids do their own money and their own finances, and so they see that useful side of math, plus the kind of fun side of math.
And the main thing is to basically model. If you don't know something, it's okay. It's actually very positive to say, I don't know that. I don't remember algebra, but let's do it. Let's figure it out. Let's try to figure it out together and work at this together. Then you can model a different type of attitude that is a positive attitude towards a subject that you may not know very much about. Okay, or make it fun. Lots of different ideas on how to do this. All right.
I also recommend the books Life of Fred.
Sorry,
There's a set of books called
Life of Fred. That math books that take this character around for different things. All right, excellent. So let's get a little bit here. Okay, let's see if this stays, I hope. All right, please keep moving. Let's brainstorm on some attitudes, okay, at home, homeschool, or learning-related attitudes that we may want to look at. Okay. Yes, thank you. Attitudes. What would be some attitudes that you want to focus on? Okay. Yes. Now, as you think about this, think which models do I have to show this? Yes.
Teamwork.
Excellent. Teamwork. Okay.
Joy.
Joy.
Self-motivation. Accountability.
Okay. So now as you go home, okay, look at, this is what you get when you have a foreigner writing here, this thing. Okay. So look at these attitudes in the handout. I have a space there for you to look at least 3 attitudes that you would like to work on, okay, with your family, with yourself, and so on. All right. What could be some attitudes for homeschool, or family-related attitudes that would be useful to focus on?
I think all of that we just listed.
Well, those also apply. I have here family unity, family traditions, a positive attitude towards that. Okay, hard work, doing chores. There's an attitude for cleaning up your room attitude. Okay. So all the things that you can choose to do or not to do, okay, are attitudinal issues, really. Okay. And then let's think about some of the church-related attitudes or living the gospel attitudes that we should. Humility. Never pray for humility. Okay? But it is a very important attitude. Christ-like love.
Charity.
Okay. Reverence. Okay. Excellent. Repentance.
How about just happy participation in family scripture study? Am I the only one?
No, that is yes. Yes.
Just thinking, understanding and using grace. So you can't do it alone. You need the Lord.
How about avoiding pornography? Okay. Can you see that is a choice? That is a choice that it has to become an individual choice done by everyone without interference. All right. Because, it is one thing for someone to say, okay, yeah, I don't watch pornography because my parents are here all the time, or I can't. But what happens when I could? Okay. So the trick is really to help develop this attitude so they become really an attitude, okay, a long-lasting thing. All right, excellent. Let's continue. It turned off. Yes, I think that is switching to the presentation mode. Okay. So there we go. So what is the second most important type of learning in this? So we've done with attitudes. Okay. The homework for you is now to do what? What is the homework? What is the homework? Choose 3. Okay. And then what else do you do?
How will we better?
How are we going to do it? And to do it is, how am I going to be the model, or how can I become a better model, or what other models can I use to model this attitude and teach the attitude better? Okay, got it? All right. So of this list, which would be the second one? Any votes? Number 2, cognitive strategies. We have 3 votes for cognitive strategies. I posit that is motor skills. Okay. So Try to remember, going back to the 3 questions at the beginning, is know, do, and become. Attitudes is linked to becoming. Motor skills is really the doing. Okay, we normally don't think much about motor skills, and we concentrate a lot on the intellectual skills. Okay, on number 1, 2, and 3, on the knowing. Motor skills, like I mentioned, I prefer to call them psychomotor skills because they involve a lot of what we do also in our minds. So it is certainly learning to do something physical. Mostly, we normally think about this about just, playing the piano or the viola. I was going to do it the other way. But psychomotor skills involve a lot more than just those things. It is learning how to perform something with appropriate speed, accuracy, force, smoothness of execution, focus, or purpose. Okay, so it's all these things. So it's not just doing something, but it's doing something really, really well. Okay. Yes. Okay. Can you turn these lights off? These are the front ones. So it's speed, accuracy, force, smoothness of execution, focus, and purpose. Okay? To do it with purpose, not just to do it. All right? So what are the do's on teaching psychomotor skills? What are the do's for that? It is very important to identify the part skills necessary for the right performance. And then learn and teach the steps. This is called an executive subroutine that make up the psychomotor skill. So every psychomotor skill has kind of the parts, and then what are the different things on how do those part skills come together in order to execute the skill appropriately. And then engage in good practice, practice the part skills and give corrective feedback, and also practice the whole skill and give corrective feedback. And provide the opportunity for game time. I like to differentiate between practice time and game time. Game time is when you are actually expected to perform, to do the performance. Okay? In most cases, like in sports, we let the score be the best judge of the performance. So, like in basketball, there are several, part skills that we need to engage on. Okay, and we practice, we do the drills, we shoot, okay, we do all sorts of different practice. What is game time?
Shots from baskets.
Yeah, and actually being able to, then play the game. Okay, what is the best sort of feedback that you get in a basketball game? The score. Okay, the score is the best feedback of your performance, all right? But the coaches also give feedback on the individual performances. Time is up, you are free to go, okay? I finish on time, but I'm going to continue talking for a little while. Sorry about that. Okay, so things not to do in teaching a psychomotor skill. Do not sugarcoat poor practice or poor performance. This is very, very damaging. Very damaging to give inappropriate feedback, inaccurate feedback. Do not confuse the practice time with game time. And do not ignore practicing the part skills until they are mastered, and then also don't ignore practicing the whole skill before the time to actually participate in something. Let me give you some ideas of what could be, why do I think that okay, we are probably, let me go back to the presentation mode. Why these are very important skills? What are some psychomotor skills at school or in a learning situation? Okay, I'm going to read you some of the things that I've thought of, just in the interest of the expired time. To do handwriting, that is a psychomotor skill, extremely important. To read is a psychomotor skill, to read correctly, okay? To recite something, to play in an orchestra, to play games, to do experiments, to pay attention, to raise your hand, to be respectful. Those are psychomotor skills, believe it or not. Okay? Can you see that it's more broad than just what we normally think of psychomotor skills? At home or homeschool, family-related psychomotor skills, take out the trash. Aren't there part skills to taking out the trash? Okay, you know, yeah, you have lots of different things, okay, on how to do that properly. Sweep the floor. Do the dishes. Every woman has a specific way of how to do the dishes. Okay, no kidding. Okay, and how to load the dishwasher. You know what I mean? Okay, okay. Yes, it's a psychomotor skill, high psychomotor skill, very, very particular. So clear the dishwasher. Fold your clothes is a psychomotor skill. Control your temper is a psychomotor skill. You know, when Mr. Basil was talking about the breathing and so on, can you see that those are all part skills that lead to a psychomotor skill of how to control your temper? Okay. Yeah, and they are things that we need to practice. We practice before. And can you see that that is what I mean by not confusing practice time with game time? Game time is when I'm furious, I'm about to lose it. Okay, do I actually engage in doing the part skills of breathing, stopping, reflecting or not? You know, that is game time. I cannot perform or be expected to conquer that psychomotor skill in game time if I haven't practiced before. Yes?
Thinking of the filling the spirit, they've got to learn to sit still first, to be quiet first, to hold their body still. All those preparatories to the game time of sitting in a sacrament.
That's right, yeah. Uh-huh.
Time, too, would be important, too. Sitting with the child and actually practicing sitting still for a little bit of time.
Certainly. Uh-huh. These are some of the things I listed in for church. Okay, psychomotor skills. Offer meaningful prayers. Okay. Isn't there a difference between praying and offering meaningful prayers? It is a psychomotor skill that we need to help and practice and teach people how to do it. And I think that many times we fail to do this correctly. Give a talk is a psychomotor skill. To give a talk correctly is a psychomotor skill. Teaching a class, visit the sick, go on a mission, actually serving as a missionary. Those are all psychomotor skills. They do involve attitudinal components. Okay, the choosing to do it, but then the how to do it, how to actually perform that is really a psychomotor skill. That is why I think that. Homework for that, list 3 psychomotor skills that you need to teach and write how are you going to be a teacher about that. Okay. Sorry. Next year, we'll do the intellectual skills, okay? Is that all right? Thank you very much.